I never expected to see her again, Ethan Grayson muttered under his breath as he stepped into the bustling atrium of the charity gala, the soft hum of chatter and clinking glasses filling the air. The chandeliers above cast a golden glow, reflecting off the marble floors and catching the edges of the elegant dresses around him. He adjusted the cuff of his tailored navy suit and ran a hand through his dark brown hair, momentarily catching his own reflection in the polished glass doors. Across the room, a small figure drew his attention, a little girl with golden curls, no older than 5, standing beside a table stacked with carefully wrapped gift baskets. Her bright blue eyes scanned the room nervously, and when they met his, a shy smile tugged at her lips, a smile that made something inside him tighten unexpectedly. He froze, heart skipping a beat, as a memory he had buried for years flickered to life. Clara Bennett, her laugh echoing down the hallways of their shared past, the warmth of her hands in his, the painful silence when she vanished without warning. Ethan's breath caught as he watched the little girl fidget with a ribbon, her tiny fingers trembling just slightly, and he felt a pull he hadn't experienced since those long-ago days. He told himself to look away, to focus on the crowd, to ignore the pang of recognition that grew stronger with each passing second, but he couldn't. The girl's laughter, light and airy, cut through the background noise, and in that single moment, something clicked. There was an unmistakable resemblance, a tilt of the head, a curve of the cheek, something that spoke to him in a way words never could. Ethan took a careful step closer, navigating the maze of socialites, champagne glasses, and artfully arranged floral centerpieces, each movement deliberate so as not to draw attention, yet he felt every eye, every whisper, every subtle glance from the room's attendees brush against him. He stopped just a few feet away, watching as she turned, playful yet hesitant, and his pulse quickened, the corporate armor he wore like a second skin starting to crack under the weight of recognition. Is she? He whispered to himself, unable to finish the thought as another flash of memory gripped him, Clara's gentle voice, the heartbreak of unanswered letters, the empty apartment he returned to night after night in the silent aftermath of her departure. The little girl skipped toward a small display of desserts, her hands brushing against the polished marble as she giggled, and Ethan felt a lump in his throat, the kind that made the world fall silent around him. Every rational thought was drowned out by the surge of emotions, regret, longing, hope, disbelief, and he realized he had to act carefully, to understand the connection before revealing his presence, before the fragile moment shattered. He inhaled slowly, taking in the scent of roses and polished wood, and stepped forward just enough to make his presence known without alarming her, watching her pause mid-step, her eyes flicking toward him with curiosity and a hint of recognition that mirrored his own confusion. He offered a tentative smile, an unspoken promise of safety and understanding, and in the delicate, suspended pause that followed, Ethan Grayson, CEO of Grayson Enterprises, felt the full force of a truth he hadn't dared to face in years. This child, this innocent, radiant girl, was the living reminder of everything he had lost, and perhaps, the first step toward something he could never have imagined again. He took a careful step closer, weaving through the crowd of elegantly dressed guests without drawing attention to himself, his eyes never leaving the little girl as she paused beside a table stacked with colorfully wrapped gift baskets. Ethan Grayson felt an unexpected warmth rising in his chest as he observed the way her small hands brushed against the edges of the boxes, her fingers tracing the ribbons with careful curiosity. Each motion seemed deliberate, thoughtful, almost as if she were trying to understand a world that was far too large for her to navigate alone. The girl glanced around briefly, her bright blue eyes scanning the crowd with a mix of wonder and apprehension, and Ethan felt a tight knot of emotion form in his throat. He remembered all too well the way Clara Bennett had moved through spaces with the same graceful caution, the same quiet awareness of how the world judged her. Ethan's pulse quickened as he considered the uncanny resemblance between mother and daughter, each subtle expression, each small gesture igniting a memory he had tried to suppress for years. The girl crouched down momentarily to tie her shoe, and the soft giggle that escaped her lips seemed to echo a sound he had longed to hear again, a sound that had once filled the empty corners of his apartment with warmth and laughter. He exhaled slowly, forcing himself to remain calm, to control the swirl of thoughts and emotions threatening to overwhelm him, yet every instinct urged him to move closer, to speak, to bridge the silent distance that had persisted for years. As he inched forward, he noticed a small bracelet on her wrist, delicate and handcrafted, a series of beads forming a pattern that was strangely familiar. Ethan's eyes widened in recognition, and he realized that the bracelet had belonged to Clara, a gift from years past, now resting on the tiny wrist of the girl he suspected was his own child. He swallowed hard, his throat dry, as the realization settled in, a quiet, profound shock that rendered him momentarily immobile. The little girl looked up again, her gaze meeting his, and for a fleeting moment, Ethan saw a flicker of acknowledgement, a curiosity that mirrored his own. He forced a smile, gentle and non-threatening, hoping to communicate reassurance and safety, though he could barely contain the mix of awe and apprehension surging through him. As he drew nearer, he noted the soft contours of her face, the delicate curve of her nose, the faint dimple appearing with each smile, and a powerful certainty crystallized within him. This child, radiant and alive before his eyes, was the living link to Clara, the undeniable thread of their past woven into the present. Ethan adjusted the cuff of his suit one last time and stepped closer, careful to make his approach deliberate yet unobtrusive, offering a subtle, unspoken promise of protection and presence. Each step was measured, each breath controlled, as he prepared to bridge the years of absence, to face a reality that was as shocking as it was profoundly moving. The soft murmur of conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the ambient hum of the gala faded into a distant background as his attention centered entirely on the child. The little girl's smile, tentative yet filled with innocence and hope, drew him in completely, and Ethan Grayson realized in that suspended moment that he had stumbled upon a truth he could not ignore, a truth that demanded courage, gentleness, and the first careful steps toward reconnection. As Ethan Grayson closed the small distance between himself and the little girl, he noticed the way her tiny hands clutched a well-worn stuffed rabbit, the faded fabric a stark contrast to the glittering surroundings of the gala. He knelt slightly to bring himself closer to her eye level, careful not to startle her, and offered a soft, reassuring smile. The child tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her bright blue eyes, and for a moment, she said nothing, as if measuring the intentions behind his presence. Ethan's heart pounded, memories of Clara's voice, laughter, and the hurried farewell she had given him years ago flooding back with painful clarity. He could almost hear her gentle admonishments, the quiet resilience she carried, the strength that now seemed reflected in the child before him. He spoke gently, his voice low and measured. "Hello there, my name is Ethan. I am a friend." The little girl blinked, her smile hesitant, and she shuffled a step closer, bringing the stuffed rabbit slightly forward as if offering a small bridge of trust. Ethan's mind raced, thoughts colliding with emotion, strategy, and the pressing need to understand without alarming her. He allowed a brief pause, letting the ambient noise of the gala surround them while his focus remained entirely on her. In that suspended moment, he caught the faint, familiar curl of hair at her temple, the subtle arch of her eyebrows, the soft dimple that mirrored Clara's smile, and the realization crystallized within him that this child was undeniably connected to the woman he had loved and lost. Ethan's fingers itched to reach out, to make physical contact, yet he restrained himself, opting for a deliberate and careful approach, keeping his distance yet signaling safety and patience. The child's gaze flicked briefly past him, scanning the room as if searching for someone she knew, and Ethan recognized the cautious hope in her eyes, the same hope he had once held, waiting for moments of connection that never arrived. He spoke again, just above a whisper, "Would you like to show me your rabbit?" His tone held warmth and curiosity, an unspoken promise of calm and kindness. The little girl's lips parted in a tentative grin, and she held the rabbit a bit higher, offering it as though testing the waters. Ethan's chest tightened, a mixture of relief and awe coursing through him, as he knelt fully now, the ambient light reflecting in his eyes, his gaze locked on hers with a careful intensity. Each second stretched, carrying the weight of years and unspoken truths, the silent acknowledgement of a connection that had survived absence and time. He allowed a small, encouraging nod, and the child slowly took a step toward him, the rabbit extended just a bit further, and in that movement, a fragile trust began to form. Ethan Grayson felt the rush of a long-suppressed emotion, a deep protective instinct, and the first stirring of hope that perhaps, after so many years, he could begin to bridge the distance created by time, absence, and unspoken truths. The gala continued around them, a blur of music, laughter, and clinking glasses, but for Ethan and the child, the world had contracted to this small, poignant moment, a delicate dance of recognition, connection, and the quiet unfolding of a truth that demanded patience, understanding, and the courage to step carefully into the unknown. The little girl clutched her stuffed rabbit a little tighter as Ethan Grayson remained kneeling, his eyes locked on hers with a mix of curiosity and gentle determination. He could feel the delicate tension in the air, a fragile balance between caution and trust, and he did not want to rush it. Around them, the gala continued unabated, the hum of conversation, the soft notes of a string quartet, and the clinking of crystal glasses forming a distant, almost dreamlike backdrop. Ethan took a slow breath, allowing himself to be fully present, every sense attuned to her small, careful movements. He noted the way her fingers twitched slightly as she held the rabbit, the slight tilt of her head as she examined him, and the subtle way her eyebrows rose in recognition of a presence she could not yet place. His voice was soft, deliberate, and infused with warmth as he spoke again. "Would you like to walk with me for just a moment?" The girl hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the nearest table stacked with appetizers, then back to him, and slowly she nodded, a tiny gesture that felt monumental to Ethan. He rose slightly to his full height, careful to maintain a gentle demeanor, and extended a hand toward her, not to grasp but as an invitation, a gesture of safety and connection. She stepped forward, just far enough to accept the unspoken offer, and together they began to move through the space, navigating past clusters of socialites and elegantly dressed guests who paid them little notice in the swirl of their own conversations. Ethan's mind was a whirl of suppressed emotion, memories of Clara Bennett flooding back with each small, deliberate motion the girl made, each subtle resemblance in her expressions, in her posture, in the way she interacted with the world around her. He felt the pulse of responsibility, the surge of protectiveness, and the quiet awe that came from witnessing the living embodiment of a past he thought he had lost forever. As they moved toward a quieter corner of the atrium, Ethan allowed a small, encouraging smile to grace his face, hoping to communicate reassurance and calm, and the girl responded with a tentative smile of her own, a mixture of curiosity and emerging trust. Every step was careful, measured, a silent negotiation of space and presence, as he sought to bridge the years of absence with the gentleness of patience and understanding. Ethan's thoughts danced between the fragments of the past and the reality before him, the undeniable link between the child and Clara becoming ever more apparent with every subtle action, every glance, every blink. He felt an ache of longing, the kind that reminded him of all he had missed, yet he tempered it with a steadfast resolve to move slowly, to honor the delicate trust forming between them. The child's small hand occasionally brushed against his, not seeking it but aware of it, and each contact, fleeting and light, sent a ripple of emotion through him that was equal parts wonder and caution. Ethan guided her carefully toward a low, decorative fountain, its soft water murmuring as they approached, a sanctuary amid the bustling event, and he knelt once more, allowing her to examine the sparkling water without fear, his presence silent, steady, and protective. The little girl tilted her head, her eyes wide with curiosity and delight, and Ethan's chest tightened as he recognized the same bright, fearless spark that had once illuminated Clara's eyes. In that quiet, suspended moment, surrounded by the glittering gala, the distant music, and the hum of a world that had moved on without him, Ethan Grayson felt the powerful, unspoken truth press against his heart. He was standing on the threshold of rediscovery, of connection, and of a truth that demanded patience, courage, and the gentlest of first steps toward what might finally become family. The child paused at the edge of the fountain, her small hands resting lightly on the polished stone as she watched the water ripple in gentle waves. Ethan Grayson crouched beside her, maintaining a careful distance, his eyes soft and observant, noting every flicker of expression on her bright blue face. He could see the same curiosity and spark he had once known in Clara Bennett, the little girl moving with the quiet confidence of someone learning to navigate a complicated world. Ethan spoke again, calm and measured. "Do you like the water?" His voice carried warmth, a gentle invitation, and the girl tilted her head, nodding slowly, her smile a hesitant reflection of trust forming in tiny increments. As she reached out and touched the surface, sending small concentric ripples outward, Ethan allowed himself to remember the laughter that had once filled his life, the moments that had disappeared into years of silence and separation. He remembered Clara's careful gestures, her thoughtful words, the way she had always approached the world with a mixture of hope and guarded resilience, and he realized that same blend was alive and vivid in the child beside him. The gala continued around them, guests laughing and mingling, servers balancing trays of delicate hors d'oeuvres, yet for Ethan and the girl, the world had narrowed to this small, poignant space, a place of quiet exploration and subtle connection. He extended a hand slightly, not to touch directly, but as a signal of presence, a silent assurance that he was there without imposing. The little girl glanced at him, a flicker of recognition passing through her gaze, and she took a small step closer, her rabbit held tightly against her chest. Ethan's heart surged with a mixture of awe and trepidation, every instinct urging him to move carefully, to honor the fragile trust being offered. He allowed a soft, encouraging smile to ease the tension, and she responded with a tentative, shy grin, the first bridge of unspoken communication forming between them. He thought of the years of absence, the unspoken apologies, the spaces left empty by missed moments, and he understood that each careful interaction now was a step toward something far greater than either of them could fully comprehend in this instant. "Would you like to see something special?" Ethan asked gently, tilting his head toward a low, nearby bench decorated with flowers and small lanterns. The girl's eyes widened slightly, curiosity overcoming caution, and she nodded, stepping forward with the cautious bravery of someone learning to trust. Ethan guided her slowly, deliberately, explaining softly about the flowers and the gentle flicker of light from the lanterns, his words simple but filled with warmth, a careful narrative to draw her into a world that was safe and welcoming. As she reached the bench, her eyes danced with delight, and Ethan felt a quiet, profound relief wash over him, the tension in his chest easing just slightly as he watched the child explore, smile, and interact with her surroundings in a way that spoke of resilience and wonder. In that suspended moment, amidst the golden glow of the chandeliers and the gentle hum of conversations around them, Ethan Grayson understood that this was the beginning of discovery, the first tentative steps toward connection and truth, and he resolved to move forward with patience, care, and an unwavering presence as the bridge between past and present slowly began to form. As Ethan Grayson watched the little girl explore the delicate lanterns and flowers on the low bench, a shadow moved at the edge of his vision, and he realized Clara Bennett had appeared, standing quietly a few feet away, her expression carefully measured, revealing nothing yet everything at once. Ethan felt a sudden surge of emotions, relief, anxiety, hope, and an undercurrent of fear, each one demanding control, restraint, and patience. He remained kneeling beside the child, his presence steady and protective, giving Clara the space to observe without interruption, while his mind raced with the possibilities of the reunion, the unspoken truths, and the fragile balance between past grievances and present opportunities. The girl noticed Clara for the first time, her small eyes widening, a flicker of recognition and curiosity lighting up her expression as she turned to glance at the woman who had been absent from her life yet connected in ways she could not yet articulate. Ethan offered a small, encouraging nod toward Clara, his posture open and non-threatening, silently signaling understanding and cooperation, while Clara's eyes softened slightly, the years of distance and silence reflected in the quiet acknowledgement passing between them. The child stepped closer to Ethan, holding her rabbit tightly against her chest, as if seeking a protective anchor, and he reached out gently, brushing a loose curl from her face, careful not to startle her, and speaking softly, "It is all right. You are safe here." The girl's smile returned, tentative yet genuine, and she glanced briefly at Clara, whose posture remained composed but visibly affected by the sight of her daughter and the man kneeling beside her. Ethan's gaze flickered between the two of them, noting the subtle similarities in their expressions, the shared spark of intelligence and resilience, the same quiet determination he had remembered in Clara all those years ago. He felt the weight of responsibility press down, a profound sense of accountability and longing entwined with the relief of seeing them together at last, and he allowed a measured, calm breath to steady himself, preparing for the delicate step forward that would bridge years of absence. Clara moved slightly closer, her presence now fully acknowledged by the child, and Ethan could sense the unspoken dialogue forming in the silent space between them, questions, recognition, and the tentative trust that would need nurturing and patience to grow. The little girl held out her rabbit to Ethan for a moment, an innocent offering, and he accepted it with gentle care, setting it on the bench beside her and allowing her to retain ownership and autonomy over the small object that provided comfort. A soft, almost imperceptible smile appeared on Clara's face, and Ethan recognized it as a silent gesture of tentative reconciliation, the first sign that the gap created by time, separation, and unspoken words could begin to narrow. The gala's ambient noise continued, a soft backdrop to the quiet, emotionally charged moment unfolding in this small corner, and Ethan felt the profound importance of patience, observation, and careful interaction, understanding that the next moments would define the nature of the connection, the trust, and the tentative steps toward healing and acknowledgement. He lowered his voice even further, speaking gently, "Would you like to tell me about your rabbit?" And the child's eyes lit up, offering a soft nod, as if opening the first chapter of a story that had waited years to be told, and Ethan Grayson felt the full gravity of a truth he had long avoided. He was on the cusp of understanding, connection, and the possibility of family rediscovered, all unfolding in silent, delicate motion. Ethan Grayson took a slow step closer, his eyes never leaving the child as she clutched her stuffed rabbit with renewed confidence, and he felt a surge of protective instinct wash over him, mingling with the quiet awe that had grown steadily since he first saw her smile. The soft murmur of the gala faded into the background, replaced by the rhythmic cadence of his own heartbeat and the subtle shifts in the child's posture that told him she was sensing his presence and assessing his intentions. He knelt slightly, adjusting his stance to appear approachable, his voice calm and soothing as he said, "Would you like to tell me a story about your rabbit?" The little girl hesitated for a brief moment, her wide blue eyes flicking toward Clara, who had stepped a few paces closer, her expression composed but cautious, and then back to Ethan, as if weighing the safety of this interaction. A small smile curved her lips, and she began to recount a series of small adventures, each one vivid and imaginative, her words carrying the innocent enthusiasm of a child unafraid to dream, and Ethan listened intently, his attention fully absorbed, careful to respond only with nods, soft murmurs of encouragement, and occasional questions that invited her to continue, never interrupting, never imposing. He noticed the subtle similarities between her expressions and Clara's, the tilt of the head when thinking, the slight widening of the eyes when surprised, and his chest tightened with a mixture of longing, recognition, and disbelief. Clara's presence, initially silent and observant, became more pronounced as she stepped forward, her hands clasped in front of her, and Ethan felt the delicate tension of the moment heighten, a careful dance of acknowledgement without intrusion. The child, sensing a new energy, glanced at Clara, then back at Ethan, and the faintest flicker of recognition passed between all three of them, a silent understanding that something significant was unfolding, though unspoken. Ethan offered another gentle nod toward Clara, and she responded with a subtle but unmistakable softening of her posture, an acknowledgement that she was ready to allow this tentative interaction, yet wary of moving too quickly. He continued to engage with the child, allowing her to recount her stories, asking about the colors of her rabbit, the imaginary adventures they shared, and the places she imagined, all while keeping his tone steady, calm, and full of warmth, creating a safe space for her to express herself without fear or hesitation. As the child's laughter began to fill the small area near the fountain, bright and melodic, Ethan could feel a growing sense of connection, the invisible threads of past, present, and possibility intertwining in delicate, almost imperceptible ways. He took careful note of every gesture, every glance, every inflection of voice, understanding that each small movement carried weight, each smile was a bridge, and each pause a moment of potential. Clara moved slightly closer, her eyes softening further, and Ethan recognized the silent agreement in her expression. The space between them was fragile, yes, but it was being filled with trust, care, and the slow, deliberate unfolding of a truth that had waited years to be acknowledged. He remained kneeling, hands relaxed, his posture open and unthreatening, fully aware that the moments stretching before them were critical, that each gentle interaction, each careful word, each patient response could define the beginnings of a connection long delayed, and he resolved to proceed with measured care, patience, and the unwavering presence that the child needed to feel safe, seen, and understood. Ethan Grayson remained kneeling beside the little girl, his eyes scanning her bright blue face for the smallest hint of comfort or apprehension, and he felt the weight of years pressing upon him, the silent distance of absence suddenly made tangible in the soft folds of the evening's golden light. The gala continued around them, the soft murmur of conversations, the gentle hum of a string quartet, and the occasional laughter of other children forming a distant backdrop that contrasted sharply with the intense focus of the three of them in this small corner. The child reached out and held her rabbit closer, her fingers brushing against the fabric, and Ethan noticed the subtle tension in her posture slowly giving way to curiosity and trust. Clara Bennett stepped a few paces closer, her presence quiet yet commanding, and Ethan could see the mixture of emotion in her expression, relief, apprehension, and the faintest glimmer of hope that this delicate moment could lead to understanding. He spoke softly, carefully, his tone calm yet filled with warmth. "It is all right. You do not need to be afraid. We are here together." The little girl glanced at Clara, then back to Ethan, and the slow recognition in her eyes, tentative but growing, made his chest tighten with a combination of awe and deep emotional pull. Ethan reached out slightly, maintaining a careful distance, his hand hovering near the child in a gesture of safety, a signal that he was present without imposing, and the child responded by taking a tentative step closer, her trust expanding incrementally with each measured movement. Clara's gaze softened further, and she allowed herself a small, imperceptible nod, the first acknowledgement that she was willing to bridge the silence of years with the fragile thread forming between her daughter and Ethan. The child began to speak in soft, deliberate words about her rabbit, her small voice carrying both excitement and the cautious energy of someone testing the waters, and Ethan listened intently, nodding, asking gentle questions, and affirming her narrative with warmth and patience, every word chosen to build trust and convey safety. The ambient light from the chandeliers caught the subtle glimmer in her eyes as she described imaginary adventures, and Ethan felt a profound sense of connection, the long-lost threads of family, absent for years, beginning to weave themselves together in delicate, meaningful ways. He allowed a small, encouraging smile to settle on his face, and the child mirrored it with a hesitant, radiant grin, the first true bridge of recognition forming between them. Ethan's gaze shifted to Clara, noting the subtle relaxation in her posture, the softening of her shoulders, and the quiet acceptance that this child, their child, was beginning to see them both as safe, trustworthy, and present. The flow of the gala continued, but for Ethan, Clara, and the child, the space contracted into a moment of clarity, connection, and understanding, the delicate dance of gestures, smiles, and tentative words creating a foundation that had waited years to form. Each movement, each carefully measured step, and each gentle interaction carried weight, significance, and promise, and Ethan realized that this was the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by patience, empathy, and the slow, deliberate restoration of trust, recognition, and the fragile, undeniable truth of family rediscovered. Ethan Grayson rose carefully from his crouched position beside the little girl, keeping his movement slow and deliberate, aware of the fragile trust that had formed over the past moments. The child, her blue eyes bright with curiosity and delight, clutched her stuffed rabbit closer, and Ethan offered a reassuring smile, his posture open and inviting, conveying safety and patience. Clara Bennett stepped fully into view now, her expression softening as she observed the interaction, the lines of worry on her face easing slightly as she realized that the connection between father and daughter was unfolding with gentle care. Ethan spoke again, his voice calm and steady, "You are safe. We are here together," and the child responded with a tentative nod, her small hands relaxing slightly as she absorbed the reassurance. The ambient noise of the gala, the distant murmur of conversations, the soft clinking of glasses, and the gentle hum of music formed a muted backdrop, fading behind the intensity of the moment, as Ethan allowed himself to focus entirely on the two most important people before him. He extended a careful hand toward the girl, not to take but to gesture, inviting her to come closer, and she stepped forward just enough to acknowledge his presence, a silent affirmation of trust forming between them. Clara moved closer as well, her steps measured, her eyes never leaving her daughter, and Ethan felt the unspoken dialogue between them, a conversation of glances, gestures, and small movements that conveyed more than words ever could. The little girl began to speak softly about her day, describing small adventures, moments of imagination, and her favorite things, and Ethan listened intently, responding with gentle questions and nods of encouragement, each word chosen to strengthen the trust and connection without overwhelming her. The child's laughter, light and melodic, echoed softly, and Ethan felt a swell of emotion, a mixture of relief, awe, and quiet joy, as he realized the depth of what had been missing for so long. Clara's shoulders relaxed slightly, and she allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile, the first sign that she was ready to acknowledge the present while tentatively reconciling the past. Ethan adjusted his posture, ensuring that both Clara and the child felt secure, his eyes meeting Clara's in a silent agreement that this moment was delicate, sacred, and full of possibility. He continued to engage with the child, gently exploring shared interests, storytelling, and small gestures of attention, each movement careful, deliberate, and infused with warmth, allowing the child to lead in her comfort while he provided guidance and reassurance. The gala lights reflected in their eyes, casting a warm glow on the scene, and Ethan understood the profound significance of these minutes, that they were laying the foundation for trust, connection, and the gradual rebuilding of relationships fractured by time and absence. As the child leaned slightly against him, her confidence growing with each passing second, Ethan felt the undeniable bond solidify, the silent recognition of family, and the first true steps toward a shared future beginning to unfold in the quiet, golden-hued corner of the gala, surrounded by the distant celebration yet entirely contained within their private, delicate world.